It's all yours.
Hey yo. Welcome again. We're back here this week.
Which one is a yo? Okay. One of the ordinary presidents.
That's Stanley's newly customized.
Stanley's giving us his own spin.
Yeah. Okay, maybe because I'm excited about what we're talking about today. Excited because I think it's an important conversation that needs to be had. The place of women in Nigeria, all of the gender violence, and these days, maybe because of Twitter and all of the social media, it's like lived in our presence every single day. The things that women go through being in Nigeria, it's not peculiar to us, but it seems like, ours is now on the increase. So, so guys, I'm sure you guys have had a very good week. Yes, you guys have. Yes. And we have an exciting guest. She's my friend. So don't worry, if we get into banter, call us to order, please. Yes. Bukky Williams. Okay, so I'll open with a story about Bukky. So I've known Bukky for a while. Okay. But I want to talk about something that happened recently. It was like a mad experience, and it ties completely into all of the conversation we're having today about women, violence, and all of that. You remember during the NSAS protest? So I used to go out every day with Bukky and another friend of ours to protest here in Abuja. And one day they had gone ahead of me. So I was taking my time, getting ready, getting sunglasses, shade, You're
getting
and he called and said, look,
protest.
Yes, and I lost it. Eventually lost it.
Good for you.
Just to be safe, in case there's CCTV.
Yes, to protect myself. Yeah, but so Bukky called and said, hey, it's turned violent, we're running. I said, hey, where are you? Where are you? I'll come and get you. And I was driving like crazy, trying to find where they are. And eventually located them somewhere in central area. They ran into a hotel for safety. As I drove to the hotel, I see these police chasing people, beating them up. And at the gate of the hotel, they were beating this girl really bad. I made a video of that incident. They were with sticks and clubs. They were beating her as if she was a thief, and then they searched her bag. They wanted to find her phone. They smashed everything they could find, including her eyeglasses. So they left her really bruised. And I got her into the car and then drove into the hotel, and Bukky and another friend of ours, we all just sat there stunned, crying, looking at the injury. Eventually took this lady to get her treated and buy some drugs and take her back home. And then I was looking at Bukky and another friend, and with all the injuries, the run, the fall, it was just crazy period. And I'm not sure if Bukky tells people about that experience. I don't know if I'm saying too much, but yeah. So Bukky is a real activist in the sense of it is not that type of sit behind a desk and this thing. She gets the work done, she gets on the field, get her hand dirty, and do the work. And Bukky's work for women through the organization she currently holds. She's one of the few executive directors I know. Something I'm very proud of. When they tell me, do you know any executive director? I say, Bukky.
So we're talking to an executive director today.
Yes, big fish. So,
senior management levels.
Yes, that's the idea. Bukky is the executive director of Education as a Vaccine, focused on everything women empowerment, gender-based violence and all of that. Bukky is a Malala fellow. Bukky doesn't say all her achievements. She just, why do you keep it inside your wardrobe, please? What is wrong with you, Bukky?
Please, when it's important, we bring it out. But as of now,
yeah, I think maybe it's that Nigerian humility thing.
I think so. I think
there's nothing humble about Nigerians. I think
I know, but But we like to weaponize humility, don't we?
That's
We like to
true.
weaponize it.
In certain contexts, when you see someone who's older than you and stuff like that. But outside that,
I know.
Hmm.
I know.
So Bukky is the executive director of education as a vaccine. They do a lot of work around women, and I think that at some point she will tell us more about the work she does and her passion for the rights of women, for women empowerment, for education, and for rights of everyone generally. She's very passionate about it. Until you meet Bukky, you do not understand what I mean by she's very passionate. She invests everything into the work she does, and it's really like she's inspiring. So Bukky, today we want to talk about some of the things that you drive, some of the women issues you drive, girl child education and things like that. And I was looking at something today. I saw something online today. It's a video of some ladies. I think this happened during this Salah, where they were coming from the mosque and men were screaming at them, shouting Abaya, Abaya, Abaya. According to the tweet is that the Imam had preached about how ungodly some of the Abaya that women wear is, and that has sort of riled up the men, and they were shaming two young ladies. Yes, I don't know if you saw the video, right?
No, I
Did you
haven't
see?
seen the video. I haven't seen the video.
So there is that video online, and then so this is the type of violence that women go through in Nigeria. How rampant is this?
How rampant. But for me, it's always crazy when we talk about, violence in Nigeria, because it is very prevalent, right? It's like in our everyday. One of the things that, when we talk about violence, I just say, like, the truth of the matter, it's a rite of passage for any young person in Nigeria to face violence. Let's be honest. Not that boys don't face violence, but it's a rite of passage. We use violence as language. We use violence as training. We use violence as love. We use violence as care. You know what I mean? So violence is just so ingrained in the way we even exist and coexist in Nigeria, right? And for children, it's so normalized, right? I remember reading the Violence Against Children survey that was released by UNICEF in 2015, where it's like, 1 in 4 girls who face some form of violence, sexual violence in many cases, and like 1 in 10 boys who face sexual violence, but like 1 in 6 will face physical violence. And often, all of this violence is done by people that they know, either in their families, in their communities, either as teachers, religious leaders, friends, people that they trust. So violence is so normalized in Nigeria. And it really just comes from the fact that we don't believe that boys and girls, men and women are equal. We really just do not believe that. Even for, when you're always joking around with guys, you're having conversations and, all of those things, and things come up like, women in leadership or girls in leadership, and you just hear them say, well, like, it's not a natural thing for girls to want to lead. It's not natural. It's so like ingrained that for them, it requires a shift in their thinking for them to see girls as leaders, for them to see, and when I mean leaders of both men and women, right? It's easy to see women as leaders of women, right? And to see girls as, so there's the head girl, and she's responsible for the girls. I remember when we were talking last year, we were doing some work around sexual harassment in universities. And there were girls who were like vice presidents within student governments. And they were saying that within the constitution of most student governments documents, there's really not a role for the vice president except to be in charge of socials for the orientation week. That is all. So as per, you're a vice president and you're a girl, but all you're responsible for is 1 week out of the school year. What?
That's like,
it's so exactly, it's so it makes no sense. But that, like, and people don't connect the dots, right? Violence is like the most visceral part of gender inequality, right? It's a spectrum. It doesn't just start with violence. It builds up to violence. It normalizes the violence. It makes the violence normal, that all of us walk around think, yes, it's normal. Like, oh yeah, if a woman talks too much or she confronts a man in a certain way, then she deserves a beat down, to be reminded of her space. That's why women in politics, who go into politics, talk a lot about the kind of violence that they face, because violence often, and the way I see it, and from the readings and from what I've just seen, it's like it's a reminder to put women in their place, to remind them that you do not have power in this society and you're not a leader.
Let me pick on something, the thing you said about the student union vice president, being just given that 1 week of responsibility during student orientation. I've always been against the whole offering token to women as a form of women empowerment, right? And I said this because I remember one day thinking that, how useful is the Ministry of Women Affairs? How does that women problem, right? And some lady was extremely violent about her response to me, when I was saying, like, it's a pointless agency if it is a token offered to women as access to the Federal Executive Council, But the person just thought I was being malicious about women being given access to power. But I think that those little tokens do not solve problems. The problems are foundational, right? That creating a separate office to solve it does not exactly mean that someone is serious about it. I don't know what you think about it.
So for me, you know what? I do actually think it's an important conversation to talk about Ministry of Women Affairs, because it, in a sense, if you're talking about it just kind of in general, is it needed? We do need something to be able to ensure that women's issues are not considered tokenistic, right? Or that are able to bring the issues of women and girls, and this is all women and girls, right? Not just a certain kind of women and girls, all women and girls in Nigeria. Either they live in rural areas, either they're in displacement, either they're living with disabilities, either they're LGBTQI, even though Nigeria is about that. But we do need a ministry that does bring it to the forefront, that does engage with different other ministries to make it happen. And many would argue that it might be better to just have gender officers who are able to understand the gendered impacts of various issues within those ministries, so that something can be done about it. But, the idea behind a Ministry of Women Affairs made sense, but the way it has been reduced to what it is now is a problem, because we know that it becomes a political game, the same way there are women leaders within political parties that are there to just make women feel comfortable, right? Not giving them any power and authority, as if the only qualification a women leader needs is just to be a woman, not that she can be a political strategist. Do you know what I mean? Not that she can be a communication specialist. And then the same thing with Minister of Women Affairs, right? Mama Taraba just died. And it's been interesting to see how people are venerating her. Like, she did so much, she was so great. But the thing that I remember the most about Mama Taraba was that she went before the CEDAW committee. And they were asking her how legal frameworks are improving the lives of women and women in Nigeria, and the issues, right? Around it, like the VAP not being domesticated, gender-based discrimination. And this woman goes into a story about how she's a lawyer, and she's been able to do so much for herself and move this issue forward. Is that what they asked you? Do you understand? Like, I remember watching the thing and thinking, like, oh my God. Oh my God. Did they not prep this woman? What is she talking about? What is she talking about? Like, they're asking about legal framework. They're talking about you as a lawyer. So people are venerating her and understand she was strong politically. But these are the things they do, in which they will now put these women as Minister of Women Affairs, who have no understanding, right? Who have no understanding of gender, who have no understanding of what it means to build power and access to be able to, improve the life of women and girls, not just be there to just talk. Or, Pauline Tallen as well. she's really passionate about these issues and she really cares. But the truth of the matter is, like, I don't need you, Paul and Talent, to come and tell me that it is bad in Nigeria or that violence against women has increased. What I need you to do is to leverage your political power, your access within APC, and tell them to get their shit together and do some things, invest, get that money, girl. Do you understand? Like, make your ministry the best funded ministry because you have access to these people. You know, don't come and be wailing like I am wailing. Ma'am, you should have power. You should have access.
Right?
I think
women affairs should be about.
I think on that note, she's only been like the male politicians as well, because that's all they do. They get into power and then come to us to ask us to pray for Nigeria. And I'm like, hold on, wait a minute. You were elected to solve the problem. Hello, what's going on here? But yeah, carry on.
Right. No, it's very true. But for me, I feel like, you know, one of the things that really, and Sandy knows, one of the things that really like drove me insane was when COVID happened. We didn't start really understanding the impact of COVID until like March, April, but it was earlier in other countries. And one of the things that was coming out about those countries was that because of the lockdown, violence against women and girls was increasing. Violence against children was increasing. And so before Nigeria was going to actually lock down, a lot of us were asking questions like, okay, so what is Nigeria going to do? What is going to be Nigeria's response? I remember in like beginning of March, Kenya was releasing insane numbers. It was South Africa. In terms of like just the number of calls that they were getting and in terms of the reports. And we were like, well, one thing we don't have in Nigeria is data. And I remember some people were contacting me to be like, do you have data? I was like, I only have data in the states that I work in. I don't have data for Nigeria as a country. Shouldn't you have data for Nigeria as a country? Like, why are you people asking me what the data is? And also, so what's your plan? You know, how are we going to make sure that there's shelters? Do we have shelters? Who's going to be open during this time so that, you know, we're able to receive calls? Would we be able to respond to these cases? Would you make sexual and gender-based violence essential services? Hey, like people like, we're only going to be closed for 2 weeks. You know, life is more important. All we can do is beg the states to do something. And I sat there and I was like, what are you people thinking? And then when everything started happening, then you started seeing people moving around like, oh my God. And then now some people now went and make sure some people got passes, but not everybody. You know, it was just so chaotic and so unplanned when we could have planned these things. So for me, I do understand why people feel frustrated with the Ministry of Women Affairs, but I also know that they're not giving, you know, the support that they need. They're not giving the funding that they need. Their work keeps getting taken from them and being politicized, right? Because it used to be Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development. They took social development away from them. Some of their work is being given to labor. Some of their work is being given to humanitarian affairs. So it's almost like, what exactly are we doing here, and who are we in service to? So I mean, I understand it, I get it, and I know they're trying to do the best that they can. But another thing that even just frustrates me about it is that people, even within it's civil service, do they even have the technical capacity to understand that we're talking about systems and structures, right, that exist, that require some technical knowledge to be able to address these issues and to be able to find solutions? Because if your analysis of the situation and the issue is already bad, your solution is just going to be just as bad. And so that's where we're at.
So let me ask one more question, and I'm sure my friends are also itching to come forward with their questions. But one very issue that is top burner right now is the INI case in Akwa Ibom in Uyo. An innocent job seeker who responded, had put out a tweet and asking for a job and help from anyone in Akwa Ibom, and this rapist and killer responded, sent number, and met up with her, and raped her, as we're saying, because he has, he's saying that they had sex, but I don't see how that is consensual. Even if she agreed to it, because she's looking for a job, he's willing to help, and she was willing to do anything to get a job. But I do not believe she agreed to have sex with him, as he's claiming, right? But eventually led to her death. This is believed experience of Nigerian women. At workplace, they are being harassed on a daily basis for sex in return for the basic things that they're entitled to, right? Do you think that the state is doing enough to protect women? That's on one side, or that any lesson is being.
Lama.
What's the salary,
Limau.
Yes.
Limau.
Sorry, I should have just listened to your question. It was involuntary reaction.
Okay, I got your answer on that one. Okay, do you think
that's funny.
Do you think that the state is capable of learning, and I don't mean Akwa Ibom, I mean the state, the government in Nigeria is capable of learning any lesson from this incident? Do you think lessons will be learned?
So many incidents, Stanley. There's been so many incidents that at one point you start to wonder, when are they going to learn? Do you get what I'm saying? When are they going to learn? Because it's not just Ini, right? Ini is just the most recent casualty. Last year, we all lost our minds when we heard about the death of Uwela, right?
Yeah.
In Edo State. It was like this girl was trying during a pandemic to still keep up with her studies. Maybe the house was too loud or whatever, so she went to church to go study, and they came, raped and murdered her in a church. Baccarat was coming out of taking a bath and was raped and killed in, yesterday. Like, this thing is so everyday. I mean, like, we are all working around with PTSD.
Just you remember, sorry to cut you, you remember a state governor reconciling
Benue State. In Benue State that had just passed the VAP, which before they passed the VAP in Benue State, the legislators got angry when they read the content of it, saying that men did not have the right to beat their wives. So, like,
not angry.
Did you get? They were like, what do you mean we can't correct our women?
Wow.
And threw it out. And then what now led to the process of it coming back was the case of Ochania. I don't remember if you remember the case of Ochania, who was being raped by her uncle and his son, her own cousin. This was a young girl of like 13, 14. They raped her to the point that she ended up in the hospital and died from her injuries. So at this point, you're like, when is the state going to learn? When? What is it going to take? Is it when? What is it? What is it going to take? Reading about what's happening in the Northeast, sex for food exploitation. What is it going to take? Universities currently, I believe, like female students in universities, and now it's even started to affect boys, are under siege. In which, like, a girl, if you catch the attention of a lecturer, do you get, like, there really is just few avenues for you to speak up, for you to say anything. Like, you have lecturers now who are not allowing girls to bring phones to meetings because they don't want to be taped. Or that they won't talk to you directly. They'll now tell one of the guys in the school or another girl to call you, that when you are ready, you should call them, so that there's no evidence of them calling you on your phone.
Wow.
As in, like, they're even trying to circumvent existing processes and rules to be able to. So at this point, I'm like, state, when are they going to learn? Because then when you go and talk to some of these men, to be like, something is to be done, their first thing is like, what do you mean? Have you seen girls these days? The way they dress? The way they dress, the way they behave. Sometimes they come to us and I'm like, and what I realize is that there's an article that Charmaine Pereira wrote like 20, 30 years ago, that just talks about corruption and how corruption has fed into the breakdown of our institutions. And that has an impact on violence, right? And in being able to answer it, because we have such corrupt systems that it makes it difficult to take things like violence against women and girls seriously, right? Because it's just a continuation of that and the way it is. So for me, I feel like states know what to do. I mean, you at least have Lagos State that has the domestic and sexual violence response team that at least has some level of coordination, that has, that work really well with civil society and ensuring that you have a number to call and to be able to ensure that the response exists. You see what's happening in Ekiti because BC Fayemi's work, ensuring the VAT is actually a law. Exactly, a law that works, ensuring that exactly, and there's a sex offenders register. The Attorney General he has made it his own personal vendetta. You know, the thing about it is like, so we know what to do. It's very clear, but the fact that we have to be begging states to pass the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, you have to beg them to fund sexual assault referral centers so that people can get access to free services. Like, you have to beg them. You have to beg the national government to fund the police, because if you go to a family support unit, the problem is they don't have money for investigations. So if you want to investigate, you pay for paper, you pay for fuel, you pay for prison services to try and pick up the perpetrator. How many people have money to do that in Nigeria? So the thing about this is like, that's why I laughed, because if we're talking about states being able to respond, they definitely do not want to. That's the thing. They don't want to because they can. And it's also the same with insecurity in Nigeria. They don't want to. They don't care about the way it impacts women. They don't care about the way it impacts children. They pay lip service to it, but it's very clear that they're like, and there's really, and they hide behind the fact that we live in a society, like I said, that just believes that women should not have rights to their own bodies, women should not have power. And so that it's easy to hide and be like, which leads back to that abaya conversation that you're saying, is like, why would you say that's an abaya? It's bad. If you do not believe that, oh, it's showing off women's body parts, and how dare they be walking around, moving about like human beings when they should be hiding inside houses so that you cannot see them and you cannot be tempted. What other reasons do you have for that? So anytime you want to talk about it, it's like, they dress indecently. That's the way they are talking. That's the way they are behaving. Is that how a woman behaves? Is that how a girl should behave? You see a girl of a 2-year-old and you be like, this 2-year-old is already behaving like an Ashego. Hey, 2-year-old, why is your mind here? What are you talking about? Why?
Yeah.
And just to sorry.
Yeah, go on. But
I just wanted to add some, to what you just said, Bukky. And one of the things that amazes me is that it's not really it's just a case of, if you're poor, if you're a woman and you're poor, then you don't matter, because these same rules, you find that these same rules don't apply to the $10 or the very rich. We've had the same. You will not see this, for example, this abaya situation now apply to the children of wealthy, people who are dear to the Muslim faith. Or do you understand? So my question, and even in Christianity as well, you also get all of that conservative talk about.
So, Bane, what is the abaya situation for anyone listening?
I think apparently what the little bit I know about it is that I didn't really read much into it because I'm just going to that point where I'm just tired, and I'm concerned about the growing conservatism in both, and hardening of attitudes in Nigeria generally when it comes to socially. There's just seemed to be this hardening of attitudes recently, like nationwide, where they're like, oh, the West. I think some people have been able to convince Nigerians that the West is somehow it's trying to erode our social norms. And so what I understand about abaya is that I think it's a dressing that is less conservative than, I think, the hijab, and I think the Nika. That's my understanding. I could be wrong. I don't want to say what I don't know, but the crux of the matter was that one of the tweets I read today about it was that the guy was like, it wasn't actually according to the text, the holy text, that's not how women are meant to dress. My question is, all of this, when it comes to faith and religion, you have to always take context. When these texts were written, the context, the cultural context of that time and the cultural context of today, you now have to you have to sit down and look at it contextually. So, and this is what preachers should be preaching to their followers, that just as we're no longer riding on the back of horses, and we're no longer dressed with certain garbs, and we're not using modern methods to preach and to communicate. So also should we sort of like, I don't know how to put it, but like we need to also look at how does this fit in this, how does this fit in today's world? And this is one of the things that, and it has the annoying thing is that it actually has happened. There's history to show that both all the major religions of the world are not practiced today as they were practiced 500, 600, 800 years ago. It's actually, so my question is, why are you trying to take us back to that place? But I just wanted to make that point, that there seemed to be this it's another I think Nigeria is a very classist society where, of course, most of us are poor. So obviously, if you're a woman, and you're most likely poor as well, because there's that discrimination, about empowering women. A woman tends to be less educated than the man, so that has less economic power. So my point is that women are poorer, and because most of them are poorer, they have all this extra load pushed on them. But I just want to quickly move from that to my question. The question I wanted to ask you is that, one, how can we force state, because one single theme that read through your responses today, that the states don't want to act, the politicians don't want to act. How can we people, like people in your position, the everyday person, how can we force them to at least do some of the basics, in terms of protecting the girl child and women? What do you think, in your opinion, can be done? What kind of pressure do you think makes them sit up? Because there's one thing about Nigerian politicians: they lack the capacity to be ashamed. They lack the capacity to be. Sorry, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me clearly?
We can hear you.
Okay, cool. All right. So the typical Nigerian politician lacks the capacity to be ashamed when caught with their pants down. So my question is, and usually world over, shame is like it's like what you use to to correct politicians. Yeah, they don't want to be shamed. So how in your opinion do you think we can fight this? And then secondly, I want two questions in one. Secondly, what have you found in your fight are the worst attitudes in terms of from the general public against your fight, to protect women from violence, to empower women and stuff like that? So one is, how can we get politicians to act? And two, what attitudes have you found are the most, creating barriers to the kind of the amazing work that you and other like-minded organizations are doing?
So I'll start with the last question, because it builds on some of the things that you were saying. And, I think when we say patriarchy, people kind of dismiss it and be like, you people have come again. And I'm a feminist, right? So it's always like, you feminists, destroyers of families and culture, and heathens who do not want, Jesus to come back or Allah to bless us. So it's like, whoo, you people have come again. But you know what the truth is? It is patriarchy. This system that exists that really just say that, that everything that is good and everything that exists was built by men for men, to conquer and all of these things. And so, that's how we just kind of understand the world around us. And it's a frame through which people understand any issues that happens, right? It is how we build our societies. It's the same reason why if a woman only has girls, they're like, wow. They'll start praying for you to give birth to a boy. We might say, that's Igbo culture, but it's in Yoruba culture, it's not our culture. Because the truth of the matter is that if you, even in Edo culture, wherever, you not born a boy, the prayers that would reach there to be able to ensure, because inheritance is passed down through, male progeny, not girls, because I don't know, girls are not smart enough to be able to handle property. Whatever it is that they use to define that, or whatever it is. And it is a system. So when people are even mad at like, oh, you're always tackling men, this gender wars, and I'm like, God, nobody has time for you, bro. Like, go and sit down somewhere. Nobody's talking about you. People are talking about systems and structures that exist, that define how we relate to each other as a community, as a culture, the laws. If you look at the Nigerian constitution, somebody was even saying that I think there's only 2 times she is mentioned, like he is the general all of us. Meanwhile, the clauses that relate to women and non-discrimination is non-justiciable. So what are we talking about? Do you know what I mean? From the very way that you built the system to exist, women are an afterthought in everything that we do. Girls are an afterthought in everything that we do. So women and girls are constantly playing catch up and constantly having to have to fight to be recognized, to be understood, to be seen. And that's the society that we exist in. So, it then speaks to the issue of, answering that your second question, which is like, what do we face? It's that we consistently have to convince people that women are human and they deserve respect. You constantly have to do that. And then we always have to justify why women should be in spaces, why, if you want to talk about girl education, you have to justify why girls should be able to go to school. Like, you have to convince people as to the benefits of it. So you now see all of us in civil society bending over to be like, well, if you educate a girl, that means, it reduces the likelihood of her child dying before the age of 5. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, well, I can hear you. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, it reduces the likelihood of her baby dying before the age of 5. Or if you educate a girl, you educate a nation. If you educate a girl, you will increase the economic development by 5.5. I'm just joking around with that because sometimes it frustrates me to even be talking about it. But it's almost like, can we just educate her because she's a girl and she's human and deserves the right to be educated and want access to knowledge? Can that not be good enough? But no, it is not good enough. I mean, when we even started talking about violence, it was kind of like, we need to start talking about what the economic cost of violence is so that people can understand that even violence against women and girls is bad for the economy. Wow, we can't just say that it's bad. We can't just say that it is bad and you people should stop this nonsense. What do you get? And so that for me is it. And it goes to then answer the question, like, for us, that's what we have to do. We constantly have to go and dig into text and dig into the Bible so that I can use it to argue with a pastor about why women deserves rights. And I have to go and be asking somebody, like, in the Quran, what does it say about women's inheritance? Because when we were fighting, and we're still fighting for the Gender and Equal Opportunities Bill to domesticate the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women and Girls, CEDAW, and then also the Maputo Protocol on African and Human Rights and People's Rights, which is the women's rights part of the African Human Rights legal framework, which Nigeria ratified but has not domesticated. And so the Gender and Equal Opportunities Bill is to ensure the domestication of that. And when you now talk to men, even men with the civil society will tell you, well, that bill is not going to pass. It's not going to pass. I'm very sorry to say. It's not going to pass. Nobody's going to pass that. And the reason they will justify is like, these men, they will see it as they push back on them. They don't see themselves in the bill. Because, discrimination, when you're addressing discrimination against women, you can then now turn to start discriminating against men. So all of us will have to sit down, we'll start doing research. We'll start looking into these issues to be like, okay, so when I look at the Quran, what does it say about women's inheritance? When I look at the Bible, what does it say, about female leadership? What does it say about women being able to decide when they want to get married? About women being able to say that, I have a right to my own body. I get the right to decide how many children I want to have and all of those things. So we will start digging into texts and start doing research to be able to have these conversations and to be able to get people to understand. We'll start bringing histories of Queen Amina, from Naira and some Kuti. We'll start bringing all these historical people to be able to tell people that, women can do it. I promise. They sabi the work. Please understand us. We are here. We can do it. Don't just look at us and think we can't. And so we're constantly having to prove that women can do it, and constantly having to show that women have the ability if they're just given the opportunity to be able to do it. And sadly, it works. We're able to make it works. And so we have to continue to do it. It's frustrating that we have to, but we are forced to constantly do it. And we're forced to constantly having to remind people that it's not a personal vendetta. That maybe me as a feminist, me, Bukky Williams as a feminist, might have issues with certain men. But really, it's not you personally. I really don't care about you, sir, as you're standing in front of me. I care about a system that makes it possible for you to think that you're superior to me and gives you the tools and resources to continue to use that superiority against me as a person and against other women who don't have access, right, to the same kind of things that I have. And it's really important. And I think it's also important to remind us that even though it seems that we are in a classist society in which money can protect women, but often I promise you that it only protects you but so much. It really does. It only but protects you but so much, because you will always be reminded by some man in traffic that he has somebody like you at home. You will always be reminded by some man who will look at you and tell you that at the end of the day, maybe you go to Shiloh to be praying for a man like me. Do you get? Because no matter how much money you make, no matter how insulated you are from this thing, somebody is waiting to remind you that you're a woman and that you are not more than your reproductive system.
Yes. Yeah, you're not more than to become a wife.
Exactly. And a mother. And if you don't look at what happened with Adesua, right? And she's sharing her fertility story, and that people on the internet, people on Al Gore's internet, on Obasanjo's internet, moving to this young woman and telling her that why is she talking when she doesn't have a kid, when she's only been married for, 2 years? Do you get what, how? And she's wealthy. You would think she wouldn't, care about these things, but it is hurtful. It is mean-spirited. And it is saying that for all of the things that she's achieved, and for however happy she may be with her husband, the fact that she hasn't had a child yet means that she's not, a woman, or she don't have a right to speak, as a married woman. You just constantly get those reminders about that. And I think it's quite important to always be able to push back against that. And the truth of the matter is that I'm really glad that you're all guys here. I know you want to ask me another question, but let me just end with this, is that for me, what I've also kept telling a lot of men, because men often want to come and be like, you people don't understand feminism. Feminism is not misandry. Please, just because you read the dictionary, don't bother me. Let me tell you, do you want to help? Do you explain feminism to me? You know what you should do? Don't bother about me, bro. Go and talk to another guy. Go to your church and wake up one day and be like, you know what, Pastor, today I'm going to preach about feminism. And I'm talking to all the men in the room. Go and talk to the men. Go and talk to the boys. Face them. Don't come and talk to me.
That's
I'm
what I
really
was actually
talking
going
to
to say.
women. You know, men don't listen to me. Sometimes I'll be talking and men will be like, Then they'll turn around and be like, but you know, and you know that everything that you have said, you have wasted saliva. But if a man says it, they're like, it's true. It's true. What you're saying is right. You're very correct, my brother. You're right. So I didn't.
Oh, you disguise.
But I just said it. I really just said the same thing in the same, using the same words. You are like, when your brother said it, now it makes sense, huh? So that's how I'm like, if you want to be a male feminist, if you really want the title so bad, I will give you the placard. Just go and talk to them, please. Go and do it.
Yeah, Bukky. Before you ask you a question quickly. Do you believe in having allies? Because I think that's a tricky issue. Allies, male allies, there's that issue of people saying, oh, a male ally is there's this derogative word now that everyone now uses. If you're a male ally, you're a simp, or you're simping, or you are doing notice me, stuff like that. I want you to take that, take that question, note it down, and then follow it, and then Mondiu ask as well, and then you answer it together.
I was even going to say, yeah, Bukky. I was even going to say, most of the time when you speak about issues of feminism, the first thing guys will say, if you come with that energy, she's not gonna shag you, mate.
Yeah, she's not.
Yep, she's not gonna shag you.
She's not.
So what I've seen, because I've heard this argument of people that you can't be a male feminist, and it's come from women as well, that you can't be a male feminist. But for me, what I always focus on when it comes to feminism is you have to be careful, because as a guy, you operate at a completely different level. You can't directly relate to the struggle. So you have to understand that first, understand your privilege. And the first thing you should want to do is to listen first before you even say anything. Like it really, it worries me when I see a lot of guys with strong opinions about feminism, about the struggle of a woman. I'm like, you don't have a clue what these people go through. Like, even if you think you know, you don't experience it directly. Like, why don't you spend more time listening? And it really worries me. There was this conversation that I had with a few of my friends on an Arsenal podcast. Like, we really talk at length, and it was just guys. And especially when you are speaking to Nigerians, you have to understand your audience. Know your audience, like KYC, do your due diligence, know who you are speaking to, and expect a certain
as a true AML man.
You understand, like, and expect a certain reaction, right? So when we started this conversation, the disguise was, don't mention feminism, don't mention anything relating to OZ or anyone that might trigger them. Forget those things. Just talk about the issues. So when you isolate those issues and just make sure that everything they see or hear is about the issues. So now Bukky might tell us about maybe the most extreme cases that women face in Nigeria today. You can put those points across without mentioning feminism. And the reason is, those people who are looking for an excuse to gaslight you, who are looking for an excuse to diminish what you are saying, I know a lot of people, once they hear feminism, they switch off.
Oh, yeah.
You understand? And I'm like, how can you even... It's very similar to the Black Lives Matter thing, where once they see Black Lives Matter, they're like, oh, yeah.
Communists.
Oh, they're here again, like, but political correctness and all that. Like, we don't even know what we are going to say now that will offend this person and all. So once they see feminism, oh, yeah. You understand? So I think my question is that you've sort of answered the first part, which is what men should do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you want to be seen as as an ally, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what I do really, because I don't really tweet a lot, even though I feel guilty about it at times, because I might think, okay, I'm a man, it's easier for me to sort of like just ignore and not tweet about it, but I spend more time behind closed doors talking to guys. When we talk about issues, we raise it and we speak about it. And most of the time, like you said, you're right. They rarely argue when you put those points across, because it's about the real issues, right? I'm a
Mm-hmm.
Muslim and I'm talking about House of Saud, right? So I'm mixing religion with gender issues, and I'm saying I have a problem not with Saudi Arabia, but with the guys controlling the country, the House of Saud, the way they treat women. Like women can't vote, women can't do this and that. I have a big problem with that. So people can argue with me because I'm a Muslim. You understand? So they can't say, oh, so it takes that out of the way. And you ask that question, why in 2021 do we still have a sovereign state that a lot of Western countries do business with that has this policy on women? And it's just normal. Like, oh yeah, you don't talk about it,
Ask them.
I think what they'll tell you. Sorry to. And you asked Bukky, right? You know what? Bukky, carry on. This is your show, actually. Sorry.
Yeah. So Bukky, before you come in, I am going to say, because we talked about society and government. So the government part, is the more depressing one. The society is my bigger worry, because most of these issues, in fact, all of these issues start from the society, and it's part of our fabric now. Patriarchy and all that, and the fact that we don't spend more time raising boys, we just put all the energy into girls and tell them how to be this and that. Like people didn't really raise me properly in terms of how to treat a woman. Like really, like in terms of the issues, I had to learn all these things by myself, right? So now, how do you what practical solutions do you think we have right now in terms of addressing these issues from a societal standpoint? Fundamentally, what are the practical, like we know about media, movies and all that, but from your sort of professional view,
Mm-hmm.
what are the practical solutions do you think we have?
Yeah, and thank you for asking that. There's quite a few things, and the hard part of telling people is that you have to take a long-term view to these kind of situations. It's not something that's going to change in 6 months, in 2 years. It's really like we need to just keep going and keep doing the work, because it got us to this point, right? To the point where we actually feel that women can be experts in their work. Women can now vote, all of these issues, right? It literally was a process to get us here. So we have to build on those processes. And what got us to get to these processes is literally, right, by doing the work of having dialogues. Like I always say, we have to go to the communities. We have to. There's really no way around it. And we just have to invest that. And that's part of the work that we do. We go into communities, you're top leaders, you're having dialogues with young people, you're having dialogues with religious leaders, you're having dialogues with community structures that already exist. Either they're working for peace or they're addressing certain issues. And you go in there and you try to really just understand. And when you sit there and talk with them and just have the conversation about, like, what are the issues in your community? What are the issues that people bring to you? How do you address it? How do you handle it? How are these issues understood? And when you start breaking it down, you realize that there's a lot of reports around violence. There's a lot of report around discrimination, especially as it affects women. And a lot of them, they just don't have the capacity to be able to address them. So by the time you come and be like, actually, we can help you understand it better, and we can help you learn how to prevent it, and we can also help you figure out how to connect better to systems within your state or within your community that could actually address it, right? And then you started to then be like, oh, because one of the things we did in Nasarawa State is we looked at the community peace structures that had been built to address the pastoral headsman crisis in the community. And it turned out like family disputes had been reported to them, but they just didn't really know how to handle it. So we were like, let's help with that. So we had a lot of conversations, we had a lot of capacity, we had a lot of training. We brought in police, we brought in civil defense, we brought in health workers who are working on these issues, we brought in the ministries, and they started having conversations. And now in those communities, they're reporting cases. There was a community where they didn't realize that girls were being kidnapped at such a high rate. It was now they were like, oh, wait a minute. That's what's happening. Or issues of early marriage. And now they have the capacity to address it, or even dealing with domestic violence, even dealing with rape. And really, that did not just start. That's like 6 years of work, right? Because you built trust in that community, you worked with them on other issues, and now you're like, oh, on these structures that exist, can we include this issue? Can we talk about it? And they're realizing that it's also addressing that a problem that they had, and it's making the community safer. It's making them feel more comfortable. And so all of these things is, you just have to put in the time and the effort. So all of these conversations that we're having that can feel so tiring and can feel like we're repeating it, we just have to keep having them, because that is what is going to change the hearts and minds. And then you can add on, you know, the media, you can add on whatever other economic benefits that come with it, but really starts from conversation and changing. And that's why we often also go to religious leaders and be like, because, you know, with an Afrobarometer study, we realize that in most African countries, people trust religious leaders more than they trust politicians, right? Those are who they believe in and listen to and adhere to. So we need them at the pulpit, the imam, the traditional rulers, talking about women's rights. We need them doing that so they can preach about it. Because if you're in a church and you're preaching that a man should not lay hands on a woman, you're shifting that dynamic, right? When you're able to say that I, as a preacher, have power and I need to use that in a way that does not make me a predator to women in my congregation, you know, that lesson will be important for like that Kosa dude. Do you understand? And people would have held him accountable for that.
When there.
I have to go there because please,
no,
do you get what I'm saying? Because
100%.
people will be like, oh, it's not rape. Oh, it's not this. But the thing about it is like people do not understand power dynamics. Do you get it? There's a lot of respect for this man. And if he comes to you and it says like, oh, by me laying hands on you, you know, like, do you recognize your power? And do you know what it means? Do you get what I'm saying? And that you need to be held accountable to that. Like, touch not my anointed was not about you, brother. Like, it was not about you. Wow. It was you not touching his anointed. Do you get what I'm saying? Stop touching.
Facts. 100%.
The anointed that was brought to your church.
100%.
You.
I was seriously hoping you wouldn't become violent at some point.
You know what I'm saying? So that's why it's important. That's why it's important. You know, when you have an imam really talking about it and saying that you should be taking care of your family, and care for your family equals respecting your wife and her rights, and not locking her inside the house when you leave. Do you know what I'm saying? And ensuring that she also gets the choice of how many children that you're going to have, that you can communicate that she has a right in this household. I mean, when you start to have those kind of conversations, becomes important because it changes. Because the thing about advocates, and we realize, and I always tell people that I work with, is that we're human beings and we have a frame through which we see the world and we process information. So if you give me information that does not fit within that frame, I'm going to throw it away. It's not going to make sense to me. So we need to look for people who understand the framework through which people process information. And for a big one, it's in Nigeria, it's religion. So we need those religious leaders on our side. So that's part of the work that we are doing to ensure that we get more of them on our side. And it's a slow work, right? It's a slow process, right? To be able to get it, because the US evangelical movement is a problem right now.
Oh my God. Don't get me started. They're
causing chaos across the world.
Do not get me started.
No, Stanley, you should be saying hold up.
Hold up.
By the way, I want to Stanley, please. I don't want to correct something I said earlier on. I think what it was regarding the abaya issue. I think the abaya is like Mondu, correct me if I'm wrong. It's like it's like a garment that it's a covers.
Walker, yeah.
It's like the tight, no. It's like the tight fitting skirt and blouse thing that women wear, I think. So I think, because from the videos I saw.
Yeah.
But it's like the ones that they buy from like the Middle East, right? That's their buyer thing now, that they have the different ones and stuff.
Exactly. I wanted to tie that to what you just said about the power of preaching and everything. And I want to be very careful that I said the right thing. So what actually happened was, apparently during the Ramadan, some imams were preaching against the wearing of abaya. So I think on the day of Eid, some of the ladies the video that's online on Twitter is ladies wearing abaya being attacked by men. Yeah. That's it.
Exactly.
But you see the connection, right? You preach against it, and then they feel comfortable yelling at women and, probably young women who are wearing this abaya and telling them that they think, but it's deeper than that, right? It's deeper than that. Because you have to explain, like, why would an imam feel comfortable preaching about this? Thinking of the whole thing about Ramadan and what it actually means for the faith. You couldn't find any other thing to preach about except women's dressing and being able to think that it is okay to preach about women's bodies and what they're wearing and think that that's okay. Like, that is so consistent. And it's also very Nigerian, because we really do not believe that women's bodies belong to them. We really, really have internalized as a culture that women and girls' bodies does not belong to them. Either your body belongs to your father, to your family, and then it's now handed over to another man to, protect and to keep in line and to keep in order. And we really do believe that. And that's through the lens with which we preach. That's through the lens through which we interrogate our fears. And that is always that, which is why anytime there is violence, when the police catches a woman, the first thing they want to do is strip her, right? Because you believe that her clothing is what keeps her respectable. And once you remove those clothes, she now becomes less than a person. She becomes an object through which you could enact your rage and through you could enact your punishment. But you have to strip her first, because you don't do that to men in the same way, right? Because when you do strip men, you're reminding them, right, of the power you have over them. But what you're doing for women is that you're reducing them from the way they can be respected or treated as women. And so it's quite important to really think through that and really interrogate that.
I think you need to come back. I think you need to come back again.
Yes, I was going to
this conversation is not finished.
We need a part two.
We need a part two, Bukky.
Yeah. So there's still a lot to talk about, but I wanted Bukky to talk about something. Recently you've been when you were celebrating your birthday, you shared a couple of places where those who want to support the work around women empowerment. I wanted to give you an opportunity to please share with our audience, those willing to contribute, support the work. Where can they go to support the work that, not just the one that your organization do, but places like Mirabel Center and all of those other organizations that support women.
Yes.
And then I'll ask you one question.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, Stanley. There's some amazing women's rights organizations who are doing such important work. Here in Abuja, Dorothy Njamanze Foundation. They do amazing work. They have a shelter that takes in families, communities, even teenage girls who are pregnant, who are not being supported by their families. And Dorothy is amazing because during the pandemic, she was one of the few women, if you called her at 12 midnight, she would go. And they still do that, because when you go to normal places, they'll be like, so we close at 5. But if you call Dorothy at 1 o'clock in the morning and say that somebody's being attacked, she will find a way to get there, get them the help that they need. So please always give to Dorothy Njamanze Foundation. They're amazing. Mirabel Center in Lagos State is an institution, and they are amazing in the sense that they provide professional services, right? They treat the survivors like clients. They do amazing work. So Mirabel Center in Lagos. Of course, there's also, many other organizations that I could share the list, but that's always two that I always talk about because they provide real-time services to survivors. And the other thing I really just want to get people to do is that, look, there's a lot of processes that are happening currently in the country. We're trying to push for a gender and equal opportunities bill. There's a constitutional review happening. There's also the 2023 elections coming up. And I think this is also important for men as well, is to say that we would not support politicians who do not support women, right? When you have presidents who are talking about women in the other room, they should be held accountable for that. Or, you know, who make jokes about women, or who only, you know, would. So for example, this bill that all of us have been talking about, right, in terms of expanding the legislature to create seats for women. So instead of including women in the current seats, what they want to do is to expand it so they can now give those seats to women, so they don't have to give up power back because they don't want to share power. So we must continue to protect their little egos in order to be able to ensure that women are in governance systems. I really do think that it's quite important for men to be able to say that, you know what I mean? Like, men need to give up power. You do. Like, you have to share. Sorry that you feel like it's your world. But we are here. We're not going anywhere. We're here to stay. It's going to be all right. We're going to make sure things are good. When women are free, you two, you are free. Do you get? Like...
Bukky, talking about power, and I know we're out of time already, and I hopefully will be asking you to come back very soon. But I wanted to ask, talking about power, there's this whole plan of creating additional 100 seats in the National Assembly. Are you going to get one?
Please, no. See, the thing is, like, I don't want that one. That's not the one I want. I don't want that.
Which one do you want?
I want the one that already sit on. Do you get the one
you want to beat a man to the one that he has?
Exactly, that one that they already have. That's the one that I want. Because see, the thing about it is that they don't want to be, they don't want to be uncomfortable. They don't want to give up any seats. They're like, hey, which man will give up his seat? Give up your seats. You're a thief. Get away from there. Why are you still there?
Wow.
What have you done for your community? Expect to pay for funerals and pay for water, pushing tap water.
And marriage.
I should have asked that question. I shouldn't have asked that question.
Why are you there? Why are you there? Which bills have you passed? They even had to beg you to pass the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. It took 14 years before they passed that bill. And yet you say you deserve to be there. Get out of there.
Bukky, to be fair, we are actually building bridges, though, world-class bridges. You know that Surulere bridge, that one is Surulere. I mean, I don't want to mention names, but there's a world-class infrastructural masterpiece that we built in Surulere that looks, you know, fantastic. I think Stanley can speak more to that, but I mean, just to reduce violence on this. Because we are building bridges, you know.
Saying, like, you're building bridges for how many years have you been building bridges?
I'm not sure Bukky knows the bridge I'm actually talking about.
The bridge I'm talking about. If you see it, you cry.
Wait, there's an actual bridge? I thought you were joking.
No, I'm not joking. There's a bridge.
There's one.
Oh, she doesn't know about the bridge. There's a lawmaker that built a bridge in Surulere.
But was it wooden bridge?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
That is not a bridge.
That's a contraption, basically.
I know.
Not a bridge.
I know.
It's like back when, I used to live in Apapa as a kid.
I call it banter.
It was like when you to Costa Papa to Ajegule, there used to be that plank of wood.
Paco. It's called Paco.
Exactly, that you used to cross to get from Apapa to Ajegule.
Yeah.
That's what you are calling a bridge.
Yeah, they actually refer to it as a bridge. And I just feel like...
And there was ribbon cutting, wasn't there?
Yeah, like the whole celebration and all that.
So it was like that Desmond Elliot, what did he do?
It's the same guy. It's the same guy.
No, okay. Everybody stop, everybody.
It's the same guy.
We're completely we are completely out of time, and we can go on and on and on. Definitely, I'm going to have to bring Bukky back. I'm sure she will oblige us. Bukky, this has been really an interesting conversation. I think we need to have more of this type of conversation about women and the challenges they face just being Nigerians. I know it's not peculiar to us, but it seems to get worse every day in the country. And I think we need to continue to talk about this issue. Hopefully, every one single person whose mind is changed will mean something for the type of work that you invest everything, your passion, your energy, and resources into. So, Bukky, we are very grateful that you're able to join us. Let me tell you something. So when we're discussing about this episode, we were very concerned that you're going to drag us that we're all men. We were almost very certain, but we escaped. I'm not giving you a bullet. I turned off your mic.
I was like, it's because this is the first time I'm here, so I didn't want to drag you guys. And the thing about it is, like, you were asking, but you were also asking good questions. So I was like, let me just respect you people,
That's so nice.
And also because, and like I always say at the end of this, about systems and structures. So if you're joining me to dismantle systems and structures, I will be nice to you. But it's when you start behaving in ways that do not show an understanding of that thing, you deserve to be dragged. So just, be good, guys. Don't give me a reason to drag you. That's all I have.
Oh, sure.
We promise.
For sure. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Bukky.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you so much, Bukky.
Thank you, everyone, for listening in. This has been really an interesting conversation. It's been extended, but I hope we'll be back to talking about all the issues we didn't cover on this episode. And until we see you again next week, it's bye from me, Mondu, and
Bye. Yeah.
Bye.
Good night.
Ciao.